My name is Can Kısagün. I started a company here called Enigma. Enigma works in the intersection of privacy and blockchain spaces. There's a company in the new decentralized internet like Ethereum and many other blockchain projects. Our mission is to ensure adoption and usability of these decentralized technologies. And the way we do that is by focusing on privacy and enabling blockchain solutions to handle sensitive data. The first blockchain solution, I guess now 12 years ago, was Bitcoin. What Bitcoin does is, in the realm of transactions, it takes away the role of bank and it distributes it to hundreds or thousands of people who can choose to participate in the network in exchange for some incentives. The way these people can, replace what bank does is by getting access to some data. A bank would approve your transaction only if you have enough money to send. And in the Bitcoin world, these network participants need to approve that you have enough money. This is the trade-off when you go from a single centralized system to a network to provide the service. Fast forward around 2016, we had Ethereum. If you consider Bitcoin to be a new form of transacting money, you can consider Ethereum to be a new form of internet. Again, Ethereum similarly has the network structure where anyone can participate. The applications we use today on the web can be deployed in similar setting on Ethereum. But again, similar to Bitcoin, Ethereum suffers from this issue of privacy in that all data on Ethereum is publicly visible to anyone. I'll just give you an example of Uber, right? We all use Uber very extensively. When we call an Uber, we let Uber, the company, know of our home location, destination, payment information. When you replace Uber, the company, with 1,000 people on the internet, then you're basically sharing with these random people your home address, how much money you have, and all that. And you can clearly see how this becomes more of a kidnapping application than a transportation application. This is true for all blockchain systems. It's the cost of decentralizing trust. So what we do is aim to address this very issue of sensitive data and data privacy on blockchains. We have built a system, or we're still building a system, that works as a decentralized network where you can build and deploy blockchain applications. However, as innovating on the field of encryption and data privacy, we can ensure that your sensitive data can remain hidden from the network. By enabling these blockchains to handle sensitive data, we want to make sure that this technology in 5 to 10 years becomes something that's usable. So the way people have responded to COVID-19 and the new norm it's been a big spectrum depending on how people wish to do things before. For us, the transition has not been as painful. As a company, we had a decentralized or distributed working environment for the past 3 years, so that transition was very smooth. One thing we did as a response to COVID-19 was a slight change in our product strategy. This relates to the efforts that we see around contact tracing in order to make sure that we can curtail the spread of this pandemic. So for people who may not be familiar, contact tracing is the practice of, say, you go to a clinic, you're tested positive, then like what a nurse would do then is he would ask you where you'd been in the last, say, 2 weeks, who you'd been in contact with, and then this person would go and manually call all these places and people in order to let them know that they're in a high-risk situation, so they go in self-quarantine. This contact tracing has been used very effectively for a very long time now. One thing we saw very early on with this pandemic breaking is contact or tracing, because as you know now, we all have our cell phones, even if we like it or not. Where we are at is tracked by most of the applications we're using. We saw very quickly that some governments, Singapore, China, developed systems that tapped into our location and cell phone data to do digital contact tracing, which is much more efficient than someone calling other people. One problem we saw with specific app implementations of this digital contact tracing was user privacy was not a driving factor when the design of the system was being made. And for example, all information about diagnosed patients, so where they have been, was visible to everyone who wanted to download that data. It's been proven again and again that these are not bulletproof technologies. Seeing the the kind of focus there and realizing that there was a gap in the privacy of the design of these systems, we thought about, okay, like, can we take what we have been doing in the blockchain space and use the same underlying principles to create a digital contact tracing application that provides better privacy guarantees. As a user, you can send your data without worrying about who's going to potentially come after you or track you in the future. Still be able to validate and inform people when they've been in close proximity with a diagnosed patient, and also help healthcare authorities or crisis response teams to have a real-time understanding of how the pandemic is evolving at a very granular level. Usually, when you look into how like privacy versus usability, like, you know, how this trade-off is perceived by individuals, unless you're a very privacy-driven person, you choose functionality or usability over, you know, better protecting your data. And that's kind of normal because it's the paradigm that we're brought in, right? Like, we have institutions that we trust, and we trust that they will take good care of whatever we share with them. However, we are seeing slowly that this trust is not necessarily based on any reality. I think one thing that has been interesting over the past couple of years around data and data rights is this concept of GDPR. What makes this interesting is it gives you as a user a couple of rights about your digital data footprint. So say you are a Facebook user, this bill gives you the right to collect all your data about yourself that Facebook collected on you. So like Facebook must return your data if you want. And there are like a couple of other ways in which, like, you know, Facebook gets in trouble if like someone else leaks their data. But the important thing is it's putting the user in the driver's seat. And I think this is a big paradigm shift from what we're used to. This is interesting because, I mean, I work in the blockchain ecosystem where the whole idea is the user is in control of their money, their data, everything. So I see this GDPR thing as a way to empower users in their data control going forward. Now, how has COVID impacted this? I think COVID is creating some sort of urgency for people to come together and take necessary steps. We already have evidence of how like blockchain technology has been adopted by us. If you think about it, blockchain is all about you controlling your own funds. But if you look around the companies that have emerged around this technology, you know, they act as a layer between you and the actual blockchain. The way your peers are going to meet this technology and use it is going to be through these intermediaries. The value add in most cases is even those intermediaries, since they're not holding all the power, will not be extracting as much from the users as the intermediaries of the internet does. For example, like think about right now, if you want to book something on Airbnb, you pay a significant amount of service fee and all that, and that's all going to Airbnb because they hold the entire network of users, which are the travelers and the renters. However, if you had that network in a decentralized setting and it was only like you had this way to interact with this, decentralized system as your entry point to it, then for that service that's acting as the entry point to capture as much value as Airbnb, therefore, extract as much value from users on both sides is not possible. And I think that's where the benefit is. Why should we care about privacy? Privacy is a basic human right. There are a couple of things that we can learn from the past and at least be cautious that, those things don't take place again. We know that after, let's say, catastrophic events or big events, we enter a period of new norm. If you look into what happened after 9/11 regarding taking a flight, post 9/11 is like black and white. So when we talk about, this privacy, location data, COVID tracking, we should be really careful about what kind of power we're giving because we may not be able to get that power back. That's why we should always be mindful about how to preserve our privacy because there's no guarantee that data may not be used against us. And if we can come up with a better structure that creates better guarantees for us as individuals, we should not just say, desperate times require desperate measures, but we should ask about whether we can build better solutions.